of the earth, gods of the warriors, rivers and mountains. So it's quite complicated religion they had in China. So they came up with alchemy, and alchemy, okay, there was alchemy all over the world. So for example, even the ancient Egyptians also practiced alchemy, trying to make gold. But the Chinese came up with the idea that alchemy is closely related to immortality. And any guesses why? Why is the making of gold related to immortality?
I guess the purification of material. It's something like changing one.
Yes, changing one to another, and gold is the metal that doesn't corrode.
One more question, sure.
Okay, I want to ask you, what is the main difference between practices in Qigong and martial arts, practices of Qi, and what is the influence of the ancient Chinese philosophy on martial arts, vision of Qi?
That will be around the end of this panel, so I ask a bit of patience for you, and if I haven't answered it by the end, then please feel free to ask me again, if you still have questions, because we will get to that. So, gold is the faultless metal, is a metal that doesn't age, it doesn't corrode. So if you... It's one thing that is pure. Pure just means that it's pure gold and not mixed with everything. But I'm saying that noble metals do not corrode. They do not interact with oxygen. And the ancient people saw that other, like bronze and iron, they rust over time. They get rusty. So it's the same way as they saw that as humans age and die. So if you can change a perishable metal into an unperishable gold, then you can also change a body that dies into a body that is immortal. So that was the basic idea, and what they were big fans of. So it was the Chinese who connected immortality with creating gold. And this in the 7th and 8th century was passed into Arabic alchemy, and the Arabic alchemy was passed into the medieval alchemy. So actually the alchemists we know of, which are, you know, the medieval ones who are in the laboratories with mercury and everything, that come from the Chinese tradition. And even in the West, the philosopher's stone, and you have heard about the philosopher's stone, right? So the philosopher, and this is something that in the Harry Potter is pretty well done, because Rowling did her research pretty well, and she was very correct in saying that the philosopher's stone is not simply making gold, but it is also about making you immortal, because that's what really the medieval alchemists sought. So she has done her research pretty well. And that whole line of thinking comes from China. In China it was called the elixir, Tan. It was called Tan. And that's passed into Arabic alchemy, and Arabic alchemy passed into the Renaissance alchemy, into European alchemy. So the idea of making something immortal is closely related with the idea of making gold. Just another medieval example. The medieval European alchemists called the philosopher's stone the stone of Jesus, because they said that just as Jesus redeemed the human race and turned something perishable into something, an immortal soul, that's also the power of the philosopher's stone. So it was really, the stakes were not simply making a lot of gold to get rich, but also to become immortal. And what the Chinese did is they love cinnabar. That's a mercury sulfate. So cinnabar, it's a reddish material, and yeah, we have already covered that. Oh yes, an interesting thing that actually in the European alchemy, mercury and sulfur, the two basic principles of medieval alchemy, it comes from yin and yang. So it also has a very origin from Chinese alchemy. So what they were doing is that they love cinnabar, they saw that it's a magical material, it's mercury sulfate, and they made elixirs of that, the Taoist alchemists, and they love to drink it. Now, what happens if you drink a lot of mercury? You die. Yes. So it's very healthy. Yeah. Let's do like Taoists do. But another interesting thing, at least that's what academics think, that if you die from mercury poisoning, that's what the Taoist alchemists happened to, well, that's what happened to the Taoist alchemist. Your body will be pretty well reserved, and it will not rot easily, because all the mercury in your body will also kill off the germs and all the things that would rot your body after your death. So what they saw is that these Taoist alchemists were drinking their mercury drinks, and they died off, but their body did not decompose. But what they thought is, another thing is that the Taoist philosophy said that passivity is the greatest ideal. And even in the Tao Te Ching, the book of the Lao Tzu's book, Tao Te Ching, how is it called? The book of help me out. It's a basic thing of the text of the Taoist. The book of the way and the virtue, I think. I don't know how it's translated in English. The Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu. You have heard about Lao Tzu, the old sage, and the Tao Te Ching? So one of the verses say that while his body lies in his little cottage, his spirit travels all around the world. So what they thought is that when a Taoist alchemist drank his fill of mercury and died of mercury poisoning, his body was laying there, it did not decompose, so they thought that he didn't die, it's simply his body became passive and his spirit is roaming around the whole world, and he has achieved immortality. So that was the thing that, the strange side effect of killing yourself with mercury is that your body doesn't decompose, and it reinforced the idea that they have really achieved immortality by simply making their bodies passive and their spirits free to roam all around the world. There were some pretty funny stories about that. Do I have the story here? Yeah. One of the funniest stories about the Chinese alchemist is that there was a master alchemist who was searching for the elixir of immortality. And he had 2 students and a dog. And as all good alchemist masters, he lived up in a remote place in a mountain, in a small cottage. And one day he wanted to test his apprentices. So he said that, my dear apprentices, finally after many years of work I have created the elixir of immortality. Who wants to be the first to test this thing? And of course the apprentices weren't too eager. So he gave the elixir to the dog, and the dog fell down and died. And then he said, no, don't worry, this is the elixir of life. It's working, it's fine. Who wants to drink it? And then we have the good apprentice and the bad apprentice, and the bad apprentice said that no, thank you. The good apprentice said, okay, I trust you in your words, master, I'm drinking it. He drank it and he fell dead. Now that was really, for the bad apprentice, it was too much, he ran away. And when he ran away, the master retrieved an antidote, and he gave it to the dog and the good apprentice, and basically it was just not a real poison, it was just something that made them play dead. So he fall unconscious and also like in a catatonic state. So he gave them the antidote, brought them back to life, and said that this was just a test to see who is the one who really trusts me and who doesn't. And now I know that I can trust you, he said to the good apprentice, so we can move on to another place and continue our search for immortality. Meanwhile, the bad apprentice was having a lot of doubts about what happened, and he decided to return to the cottage with the help of a few villagers, saying that at least we should give a proper burial to the master and the other apprentice. And when they arrived there, they saw that no one is here. So what he thought is, oh my God, they have really become immortal and their bodies have flown away, and I was so stupid that I ran away and I lost my only chance at immortality. So that's how the anecdote goes. I don't know which one of you would have chosen to drink the master's poison, and which of you would have run away just like the bad apprentice? Who would drink the master's poison? The fanatics. And who would run away? Ah, yes, okay. that shows it. So, yeah, it's quite a weird story, but it also shows the humor of this whole thing and a lot of doubt that was around it. And even the Chinese felt there is something fishy about this idea of drinking a poison and is it immortality or not, what you get. So yeah, this is one of the stories about it, and I really like it because it shows the whole dynamic of doubt in this whole story. So, another interesting anecdote about the immortals from the Book of Immortals I mentioned earlier, this is a 4th century Common Era text, is the Emperor of China heard about an immortal living next to a river, and he decided to make a visit. So he arrived and there was this small cottage, and the emperor arrived and no one came out. So he sent one of his errands that go in the cottage and tell that sage that it is the emperor of China who is here, so he should show some respect. So the envoy went in, and then he told the immortal who was living there what's happening, and then the immortal with the thunder and lightning floated out of the cottage, really frightening the emperor, and said that I am floating above the earth, so the emperor of the earth have no dominion over me, but I'm not high up in the heavens, so the emperor in the heaven has no dominion over me. And okay, the emperor was a bit, okay, all right, I get your point. But he started talking, and he asked that why is he, if he's such an immortal, why is he still living here? And he said that, listen, here I am, basically at the top of the hierarchy. And if I go up to heaven, there is also a hierarchy of big bureaucracy in heaven, because that's how Chinese thought heaven is, that there are a lot of gods, and they're all in a bureaucratic pecking order. And if I go up to heaven, I will be again at the lowest rank, and I have to start climbing up all the ladder of society. And oh yeah, but they are the Chinese. So he said, no thanks, I don't want to do that again. I'm pretty fine with being an immortal here on the earth, and being above the earth, but not going up to heaven to start all that greasing up my veil and the bureaucracy. Yeah, perfect middle ground. So, we were talking more about alchemy, and let's go forward a bit in the development of Chinese civilization and time. So we had these alchemists making their mercury potions. And after a time, already in alchemy, the human body was used as a tool for alchemy. For example, drinking something and pissing it out. And actually that was used also in European alchemy as well. So the human digestion system is a powerful tool for chemistry, and it has been used from time to time for that. So after a time it came to the idea that if we can do part of the alchemic process in the human body, why not do the whole process in the human body? So that's how the so-called internal alchemy came to be. And the idea was that we already have qi in our bodies. We can simply change and manipulate the qi inside our bodies by breathing exercises, by qigong exercises, by internal martial art and meditation. And then instead of making chemicals and drinking them, they were saying that they were making the elixir within the human body. And I'm pointing here because you might have heard in martial arts the Tantien, the heavenly cinnabar fields. That's, the Japanese call it hara, which means stomach, but in Japanese martial arts it's called the center of a man's ki, or chi. So basically the source of your power is said to reside actually behind the navel. And it's considered to be, the tan is the word for the philosopher's stone, the elixir. So it's the Tantien, is the heavenly elixir that's within your stomach. So the center of your body's flow of qi. So that's how internal alchemy was born. And that was born somewhere around 9th, 10th century, and it became really popular by the middle of the second millennium, so the last 1,000 years. And that's how internal martial arts developed also. So, of course the Chinese had some martial fighting techniques for a long time, But the martial arts, we know, are actually no older than 1,000 years. So the martial arts like Kung Fu and Tai Chi, they are all come from the late Middle Ages. That's when internal alchemy developed in the Chinese civilization, and it replaced most of the external alchemy. So instead of having a chemist lab and doing elixir there, they saw that we just do some martial arts and breathing and meditative exercises and attain immortality. So that is one of the reasons, if you have seen any of the wuxia movies or the modern interpretations of wuxia movies, like Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, or any kind of kung fu movies, they are always running on the walls, they are very light, they stand on the top of a very thin tree. And they do that because of the idea that I told you in the beginning, that when you are working towards immortality, what you are doing is that you are replacing the chi in your body. You are getting rid of all that heavy yin chi, the earthly chi, and you are gathering the heavenly yang chi, and that makes your body light. So that's why a good martial artist master is much lighter, and he can basically float, because it shows that he is toward, because he is toward his way to immortality. So that's how Asian concepts of how to achieve immortality even influenced the kung fu movies of the 20th century. So all these visualizations of kung fu masters floating and jumping ridiculous distances, running along walls are all related to the idea of having a lot of yang chi instead of yin chi in their bodies. And so what is the current, the current best practice for immortality according to Chinese? If you want to achieve immortality, some practical ideas for you. The current theory that is developed during the last 500 years or so is to achieve immortality, we have to conserve and pile up the three treasures. And the three treasures are Qing, Qi, and Shen. And Qing, essence, is basically semen and other sexual fluids, both in men and women. And the best practice to store it up to achieve immortality is the quite strange practice of having an orgasm without ejaculation. And they saw that if you do that, all the young energy in your semen, instead of flowing out into the woman's womb, would stay in your body, go up into your brain, and then energize you and make you immortal. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Even my Tai Chi master said that from time to time, he tried that practice. Okay, kinky thing. Actually, I have to disappoint you that according to modern medical, what happens is if you do that, if you have an orgasm without ejaculation, then basically all the semen will just leave you the next time you go to the toilet. So sadly, that's not how it works. It doesn't go up to your brain and make you immortal. The second treasure is Qi. Again, the vapor, the basic vapor that makes up all things. And then you can do the breathing exercises. There are some Taoist breathing. It's basically have a very deep breathing using your stomach, so not your abdomen, but do an abdominal breathing and not breast breathing. And there are a few things you should watch out with meditation. And the third is spirit or Shen. And Shen is lost when you are anxious. So the basic idea is learn not to worry and then you will become immortal. It's like, don't worry, be immortal. So that's how you do it. So thank you very much. That was my lecture. And if you take note of these, then we will meet in a century again. So any questions? No? Okay, cool. Thank you very much for your attention.